It has been months. We've been sitting roughly 12 weeks. Every episode we do, we just go, damn it, we need to ask Frank Seravalli who the Oilers are going to target at the trade deadline. And we finally get that chance. Frank, how's it going? What's up?
No, you don't.
Damn it.
I love how we were talking about Taylor Hall coming right as he
I know. It's like right as he popped up on the screen, he heard us talking about trade deadline targets for the Oilers. But Frank of Daily Faceoff and the DFO Rundown, all 4 division previews now out. And today's was the Pacific Division. So find that wherever you get your podcast from. Frank, how was your summer?
It was good. It was quiet. Really didn't do much. Lots of time with the family, some golf, no trips. It was a really nice summer.
Yeah, I was going to say, you actually didn't go anywhere. You were just hunkered down and relaxing, which is great. I'm rocking my Phillies hat for you today. They are my NL team I'm rooting for in the playoffs. I'm going Guardians, Phillies, World Series. Are you fired up for the Phils?
Guardians? What?
Canada's team.
Tyler's team.
Canada's
okay.
team. 4 Canadians.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Are the Guardians, are they going to do it?
Probably not.
They got the same side of the bracket as the Astros, right?
Yeah, they're the 2 seed, so it's not bad. But I would like to see the bank rocking again in the fall. It's always fun. I do like watching Phillies playoffs games.
Me too.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
All right, let's talk some hockey. Just a simple blanket way to start this. You did the Pacific Division preview today with Jason Gregor. Is this division the Oilers to lose? Simple as that?
I believe it is. Look, I think this team is better than they were last year. I think they have the best top 6 that they've had since the 1980s. I think they are certainly well positioned to not have a start like last year. And if that happens, then this team should cruise to their first division title since 1987. It's been a long time, but to me, I mean, you look at this group and where they are, how fired up and motivated they should be to get the job done this year. Crossing off the division title, as even as unsatisfying as that might feel, given what they need to do, it should be first on the list.
Yeah, I do think I always roll my eyes at the whole President's Trophy curse and things like that. Because for me, when I look at this Oilers season, I go, you just learned the lesson in a way. Having home ice advantage the whole way would be massive. The Oilers might be Stanley Cup champions if they had home ice advantage in the Stanley Cup final. I think building up all of those little advantages through a playoff run could absolutely be the difference. I think winning the Pacific, winning the West, trying to win even the President's Trophy is not an unrealistic goal for this team, considering how good they look on paper right now. But there also is a little part of me, Frank, and it's the fan side of my brain who's not overly excited for this regular season, because I'm a little bit just get me back to the playoffs. Can I feel that again? I want my next hit. I want my next dose. Do you think there's a chance the players feel any of that it's a little bit okay, we know how good we are. Let's just survive this regular season, get us to the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm sure that's a feeling that you just described is very similar to what the players have. Here's the thing I'll tell you, though, is, and look, this isn't meant to be hey, remember the decade of darkness and how bad everything was. You should learn to enjoy it. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to bring it back to baseball, which is a totally different thing, and you never really know what happens when you get to the baseball playoffs, kind of similar to hockey. And I do think it's a little bit hokey that they celebrate every step of the way. But there have been a ton of dreadful baseball seasons here in my town. Watching that team, even though the NL East was a totally secure thing for a long time for this team, watching them celebrate that, I think, was actually a really important milestone. And it's don't take for granted all those little, look at the start of last season. You don't take for granted things like that for the Oilers. So to me, if you're writing out a list of goals, it should be winning a division championship. It should be getting home ice throughout. It should be getting X number of players to the Four Nations face-off. It should be go through and unpack the list. It should be pretty detailed and long, and it should all be written down.
I'm going to ask you about the Four Nations thing now, since you just brought it up. How many Oilers do you think could make that team? I think 4.
So we're just talking Team Canada, right?
Yeah, just Team Canada, sorry. Skinner, Boosh, Hyman, McDavid.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Hyman for sure. McDavid, obviously. Bouchard is a really 90 plus point bet. Skinner, though, is it a guarantee? Is it a lock? Like I trust me, I understand the state of Canadian goaltending. Where would he fall in the sort of pecking order?
That the state of the goaltending is basically the reason why.
It's
I think he
him,
could
Binnington,
Jari.
and Aiden Hill.
Does Fleury make a push?
Oh, maybe it's a vet. It's like a third.
Man, that's the least excited I've ever heard anyone get about Marc-Andre Fleury. What did he do to you?
No, nothing, I guess. I mean, I like him, but like, I don't know. Like, it is interesting when you look at who else is going to be at that tournament, and the Americans are like, will Demko be healthy? Connor Hellebuck, all these names, and like the Swedes have their guys, and then I know Russia's not in it, but like you can look at Russian goaltending and be like Vasilevsky or Shesterkin or Sorokin, and Canada's like Aiden Hill, Stuart Skinner, old Marc-Andre Fleury.
Back up on Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're looking at it from that lens, Stuart Skinner, he was essentially 12th last year in save percentage among Canadian goalies. Yeah, he's squarely in the mix for sure.
Yeah. Okay, back to this Oilers team here. I want to talk to you a little bit about the race for the 4C spot in Edmonton. Nothing says preseason hockey like a good race for a fourth line center position.
No. Nothing says really good team like a race for a fourth line center position.
That is a good point because everything else is pretty locked up. And listen, Noah Philp is making a lot of fans during the preseason here in Edmonton. You know, me.
You already were one.
Pardon?
You already were a fan.
Absolutely, I was. That's what I was going to say. You know me as a Golden Bears guy. Like, I've always been high on Noah Philp. But Derek Ryan's the incumbent. And I feel like someone's got to do a lot for the Oilers to sit there and go, boy, we're okay waiving Derek Ryan in this whole equation. But do you think there's an actual race, or is this all just playing out because there's nothing else for us to talk about and it's going to be Derek Ryan's job on opening night?
I think what's the way more important question is not who's the game 1 opening night fourth line center. It's who is the game 57, game 63, game 80 fourth line center. And I'd say that the odds are slightly skewed in Derek Ryan's favor. However, and by the way, he hasn't played that much center so far, has he? In the preseason, Derek Ryan?
No, they've started him on the wing for a handful of games.
Right. So, look, they understand what he can and can't do. What I would say is that they're certainly not blind to some of the deficiencies in his game. And look, he's a steady Eddie guy. He could get the job done, but there's a noticeable drop in team speed when he's on the ice. And I think that's something that they certainly have to, recognize and manage. I would think that the way this has played out so far, and before skates hit the ice, I would have said that the top candidate, if not for Derek Ryan to be that 4C, would have been Lane Peterson. Mm-hmm. I think it's skewed heavily to the next guy up being Noah Philp.
And that is, like, again, it won't be like now this preseason's all for naught for a guy like Philp. He's jumped Hamblin and he's jumped Peterson in terms of who would be the call-up. So I think that's a good point too. You had something to say?
Do you think the Oilers have any regrets about what happened with Holloway, with the way that when Holloway did his interview, he said that he wanted like 1.1 or something.
1.2, somewhere in that range.
But they signed Yaremchuk and Perry. And now looking at that bottom six, like, it clearly needs upgrades. It'll be fine. But do you think they regret that kind of process they went through there?
I don't know if it was quite Yaremchuk and Perry that really kind of clinched it, because you would have been able to keep those guys had you not done one of Arvidsson or Skinner. I think that to me is really where the calculation comes in. Like I understand, and to be honest, like in a lot of ways, I would prefer the skill set and style that Janmark brings, like the intangibles and different parts, elements to his game, than Holloway kind of off the jump. And I know people are going to say, "Are you absolutely crazy? This is a younger guy that could be, a potential center option for you for years." I think where this team is at right now, they really need a Janmark. But I think the question really comes back to one of Arvidsson or Jeff Skinner. Like, did you need both? Could one of those guys had done it? And then, we can make the joke about will the Oilers go after Taylor Hall at the deadline? But like, tell me right now, where would he even play?
On the left, on the third line next to Henrique and Brown.
It's an expensive 3 LW.
Okay, and what's Evander Kane going to do when he comes back?
Wow.
What?
4 left wing? No, I'm kidding. Like, is he gonna come back, or are we gonna see him in the playoffs? Like, that's kind of
Up in the
Well,
air.
he will be back at some point. The question will just be regular season or playoffs. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they waited until the play. Hey, look, you just watched one of your division rivals play this game every year.
Yeah.
Why? Like, first off, you want him to be 100% healthy, and this is a difficult surgery to go through. Just talking to players who have done a lot less than what Evander Kane just had repaired. Why would you rush him back?
agreed.
Yep.
You're $4.5 million at the deadline if you're just accruing space with him on regular IR. If you flip him over to LTIR after the fact, you're talking about a $9.5 million acquisition.
And that's where you mention with him on regular IR, if you only keep 12 forwards and 7D on your roster, you have a chance to accrue up to 4.5. And listen, it's not going to happen. And we're really getting into the weeds of the whole cap situation here. But like Raph Lavoie has looked really good in the playoff or in the preseason. If you are going to keep him on the roster, you probably need to waive someone like a Corey Perry. But there's no way they do that, right? But again,
No,
if
you're
you
waiving Raph Lavoie. They already had him pass through waivers. You're just waiving him again.
But if you wanted to maximize your potential accrual space, you would have Philp and Lavoie on this team instead of Ryan and Perry. And you would be sitting there. I think at that point, you'd be getting close to $6.5 million you could have at the deadline. And you could argue you might actually have 2 better players on the roster.
Well, I understand the argument, but you'd have to, it's not just like waive them and flip them out later. You'd have to keep that same 12 every night all year. And we just know that's not what they're going to do.
Yeah, I know. Last player I wanted to ask you about on the Oilers. I was getting a really big chuckle. I remember when I did that tweet a while ago where I was like, I'm just going to tweet insane things about the preseason and see if anyone bites. Frank thought I was talking mad shit about Ty Emberson. I've always been high on Emberson since reading his player analytics cards, because that's quite honestly all I've seen of the guy. But you had him on your much more educated. You had him on your list of potential breakout players. How? And it's hard to say excited because he's a defensive defenseman, but like, how excited should Oilers fans be about the idea and potential of Emberson?
By the way, I actually think he has way more offense to provide. I wouldn't even classify him as a defensive defenseman. This is someone that could probably pile up points in a pinch, and at even strength should be able to get a number of pucks on net, which, when you look at his shots on net per 60, they're actually, I think they would have been third on the Oilers last year among defensemen. So, look, I think they made the best of a bad situation, losing Broberg and Holloway in that combined offer sheet deal. They had to do something about Cody Ceci at some point this season. It's a lot easier to do it now in a crew cap space as opposed to being held over a barrel. And the fact that he played for Chris Knobloch in Hartford not long ago is a really good curated selection, a guy on a bad team that has more to give. And so now the big question is, I think even more than production or what he looks like, or how does he hold down the second pair right shot role, and I alluded to some of this today on our Pacific Division preview, is going to be, how does he look with Darnell Nurse? Like that to me, I think is the crux of the entire Oilers season is, and maybe even their success in the playoffs. Last year, instead of like this whole idea of at $9.25 million, Darnell Nurse needs to drive a pair. I mean, that would just be like you're asking too much at that point. If you could just get him to be steady, if there's someone else out there, maybe it's Emberson, maybe it's someone else that can balance him out, that would be a significant win. And I don't know that everyone can play with Darnell Nurse. So I'm really curious to see what that fit looks like.
If Emberson is legit with Nurse and that is a solidified second pairing, it changes the deadline calculation totally, because then maybe you're not sitting there going, oh boy, there better be a top 4 guy that shakes loose somewhere on the market. You're sitting there going, all right, let's add someone to that third pair, give ourselves a layer of depth, and maybe you are.
I still think you're adding to the top 4 anyway.
That's probably fair.
Because in a best case scenario, even if that pair is great, in a best case scenario, you're looking for the best collection of 4 defensemen. I don't care what hand you are, because look at the Dallas Stars last year against the Oilers. They were 2 defensemen short.
Yeah.
I mean, how many, if you played that series however many times over again, and with both teams being healthy, how many of them do the Oilers win? Out of 10, out of 100.
Yeah, I don't really want to answer that because I don't like the truth. Yeah, make a good point. I lied when I said that was my last question. I quickly wanted to just pick your brain about the Jeremy Swayman thing, because this has just gotten, it feels like it's gotten ugly, man, and it's gotten public. And, you know, we had DJ Bean on last week and we talked to him about this. And my perspective is, I understand how it's gotten to this point because I see both sides. I can see Swayman going, whoa, I am young. I've passed every test you've put in front of me. I sat as the 1B for Allmark. I did my time. It's my crease. Pay me like it's my crease. And if I'm the Bruins, I'm sitting there going, you've never played more than 44 games in a season. Why do we have to pay you Shesterkin, Sorokin levels of money when you've never played 55 games and been a workhorse starter? What's going to be the solution to this? And do you remember, like, when was the last time something got this ugly?
Well, I don't think Cam Neely can control himself. So that you started to see some of their cracking under pressure with Don Sweeney's initial interview to open camp when he called it the spitting up on yourself podcast. Like, I mean, you don't start to, have it trend down that path unless you're really frustrated with the way negotiations have gone. And by the way, he wants to be paid like Hellebuck and doesn't have multiple Vezinas to show for it. Like, so I understand it from both sides. I really do. And I think it's also a little bit easy for Cam Neely to sit up there today and say there's 64 million reasons. If the ask hasn't changed and it really still is $8.5 million, that $500,000 times 8 years is $4 million. I don't know about you guys, but if it's like, hey, are you going to wait an extra 2 weeks for someone to give you $4 million? Like, yeah, dude, I'm going to wait an extra couple weeks for $4 million because at the end of the day, that might be huge. It might be nothing by then, but right now when Jeremy Swayman has not really made much money, how much of $4 million, what percentage of that would be his total career earnings? It's still a big deal.
Was there miscalculation not signing him then before trading Allmark?
I think so. You
gave him all the power.
You could have at least gotten really close. Like I would have made sure that was done before, but
all right.
Easy to say now.
Yeah, one of the big stories as we head into the regular season, which gets going roughly a week from now if you don't count the Europe games. The Europe games happen a little bit earlier.
They don't count.
Yeah, they don't count.
I was going to say we don't.
Yeah, we don't observe those.
Stupid Tuesday they start on.
Yeah, Liam's so mad about the schedule again. All right, Frank, appreciate your time, man. Good to have you back on the screen.
See you guys.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.